Hello and welcome to another Harsh Noise Gear review. I am here today with the Arturia MiniBrute 2. This is an amazing synth and it can make really nice sounds. Today we're going to make it make really bad sounds because it's a pretty sounding synth. Let's bring in that sub oscillator for some rich bass. Yeah, it's a beautiful synth. You can make gorgeous tones. Yeah, but we're not going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about how to make it sound bad, which is why I have a bunch of noise gear. And we're going to talk about ways to use this thing wrong. Not that wrong, but wrong enough to make harsh noise and all sorts of experimental sounds. Outside of the cookbook, this synth comes with a cookbook. Look, I can make like acid basics. I can make like a bass drum, a soft triangle, nice music sounds for music people that play music. But what about if you don't want to play music? What about if you want to do like yeah, exactly. There's easy ways to do it on this synth. And I want to talk about first, I want to go over the features of this thing, just a quick rundown, because there are plenty of videos out there that go over what this is in depth, but I'm going to do a really quick rundown. Then we're going to get into a bunch of weird patches that you can do with just this synth. Then we're going to get into using a bunch of external gear to modify the synth. Okay? All right, let's start with the features. So this thing has an VCO, has two oscillators, VCO 1 and 2. VCO 1 is complex and has 3 wave shapes, including a noise oscillator, so 4 wave shapes that you can blend and mix together and make sound pretty. VCO 2 is VCO 1 also has a few knobs that allow you to modify the wave shape in subtle and pretty ways, such as the pulse width, the metallizer, the metal mod, the ultra saw. There's subtle ways to change the sound, and those are usually routed to like the LFOs, which, yeah, this thing has 2 low frequency oscillators. They each have their own light. How cute. They also have multiple wave shapes, which is really cool. The best wave shapes for noise, so you got sine, triangle, sawtooth, square. Then you have sample and hold, or like clipping noise. So let's like hear that on the pulse width real quick, because I want to, because like this is something that I'm going to come back to, because this is great for noise. So you can hear how it's at like different volume levels, different levels of like clipped square noise. Then it has like smooth random noise, which is basically the previous one but turned into a sine wave, kind of. So it's smooth but random. And those are important because both of these LFOs are the same. They can either be free with the knob or sequenced into subdivisions with like invisible notches, or sequenced with the sequencer, which we'll get into as well. The most important knob for noise in this section here, so you have like a fine tune, you have some glide, you have some things that can modify subtle ways in the wave shape. But the most important knob for noise is the FM knob right here, the frequency modulation knob, which is by standard hooked up to VCO 2. Now, what the frequency modulation knob does is it modulates the frequency, the pitch of VCO1. Standard by using the pitch of VCO2. Now, I'm going to get back into that after I finish the features. Because there's a lot that you can do with frequency modulation for noise, and there's a lot that you can do that's like hidden in the patch bay with this. Okay. Blah, 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 VCO1, VCO2, the LFOs. Cool. Moving on, the filter. Beautiful filter. What's really cool is it resonates by itself at high resonance. Let's... Pretty cool. Yeah, so the filter also has a low pass, a band pass, a high pass, and a notch. We're going to use the low pass for pretty much the whole thing because most of the things I do, even messing with the filter, sound best through the low pass. Then we have the frequency modulation knob, which is by default how you turn on the ADSR. So, and it's bipolar, so you can go negative. Then you have the attenuator cutoff knob, which right now does nothing because nothing is hooked up to it. It's supposed to be like an additional thing for the cutoff, but it does nothing right now because nothing's hooked up to it. But it's going to be one of our most powerful knobs because it is a freely assignable knob that we can do nonsense with the patch bay. There's another one of those, but I like to use, you'll see me use this one a lot. This is the second attenuator, but it's in the amp section. And this by default is hooked up to the amp, so that's kind of like how you sustain a note. So that's, you're gonna see me turning this up a lot to demonstrate a sustained note instead of holding down. Instead of holding down a note, I'm just gonna turn up this knob very often. That knob is also mappable with the attenuator patch bay, but I don't really use it all too much for that. I mostly use it as a sustain, to be quite frank. Then we have our global tune, our brute factor, our master volume. Global tune I don't really touch because it's tuned mostly to C right now. Cool, yay, music. But like it does, it's a fine tune, really. It's not a crazy tune like... It's not like that. Oscillator 2 can do shit like that. This really is just... It's within like a half step. It's for tuning to your other stuff, really. There's a fine tune as well. But again, not the range of the all setting on VCO2, because the all has... I'll get into VCO2 a little more when I start using it, but it has 3 settings. It has free, all, and LFO. Or fine, all, and LFO. Anywho, where were we? The amp, the brute factor. The brute factor is really cool. This is a noise thing that they built into this. They built a dedicated feedback knob that feeds the sound of the amp back into the amp, just like dedicated, just like... Let me get some sound here. So it adds like some hardness and some edge and some fatness and some like whatever nice synth terms, but this is a noise knob. It's feeding back now, and when I turn that all the way up, that's a classic feedback loop sound, and like when I turn it all the way up, it really is not letting a lot of the original sound through. It's mostly the feedback loop of the amp. So I'll be messing with that sometimes, but oh, I'm also going to be messing with the Carcosa fuzz just because I think this synth sounds great through a fuzz pedal. So I'll be using that from time to time. What else? Features. I covered the knobs and sliders. Then there's the patch bay. And the patch bay has lots of ins and outs. And I've basically plugged in everything wrong that I can, except for I don't plug outs into outs or ins into ins, because that either A, doesn't do anything, or B, is bad for the synth, and I'm not going to risk it. So I plug only outputs into inputs. But luckily, this synth is super well labeled in that every output has a white border, or is like a black text on a white rectangle, right? And every input is white text with no border. So it's really clear what you're supposed to plug into where. Well, not what to where, but it's well marked to make sure that you don't blow the fucking synth. But let's get into some... oh yeah, the sequencer down here. We have... it has an arpeggiator mode. It has a sequencer mode. It's pretty cool. It's basically the key step. You can sync where the sequencer comes from. We're going to keep it on clock because we're going to mess with that. And then over here you have the bend controls and the mod wheel controls. We're going to keep it on mod CV because we might mess with that. And the bend wheel bends pitch. It has a bend range. You got your octave up and down keys. And the keys have velocity and aftertouch as well that can be modified with the patch bay, or that can be used in the patch bay to modify other sounds. Now, I'm going to talk about some patches now, some simple things that you can do, because that was basically all the features of this thing. I don't have any modular gear to plug in to this. I only have noise gear, which is great. But before I get into plugging into other stuff, I'm going to plug in it into itself in some fun ways. Like there are normal ways that you can reroute. Let's go over some basic ones and get into weirder ones. So you can, we have our square wave with nothing affecting it. Let's turn it up. We have our square wave with nothing affecting it. Let's change the pitch of it with an LFO. That's pretty cool. But how about we make LFO2 control the cutoff of the filter. Yeah. Sounds like it's talking, kind of. Because we have that controlling the pitch. Let's control the amp instead with LFO1. So LFO1's controlling the volume with random smooth noise through the amp, and LFO2 is controlling the cutoff with random clip noise through the cutoff knob. But let's plug it back into pitch because that's more fun. Yeah, very cool. And that's just something you can do simple with the LFOs. But let's get into something even weirder. Because let's make a feedback loop inside of it. So let's take the amp out, so the volume of the synth, essentially. And we're going to run that into the cutoff. Now, this essentially means that the louder the synth gets, the more this is going to cut off. But at a certain point, it gets so loud it starts feeding back into itself. Let's actually attenuate this with this knob here that we were talking about earlier. Well, we don't need that one, because this input automatically routes to the cutoff. So that's a really cool patch that I like a lot, because it's making the amp feedback into the filter. It works really well with square waves and the sub oscillator. Yeah, it works really well with square waves. Here you can kind of just hear with the sine wave it working as intended, in that it makes the volume makes the frequency go up of the cutoff. But with the square waves, it freaks out. So that's a fun one. What else? You can control the pitch. Okay, now I want to get into the FM knob and all the things you can do with this, because there's two inputs for this knob. There's FM and linear FM. And you can do crazy stuff with it. So right now, normally the frequency modulation knob is connected to the frequency of VCO2. So let's hear what that sounds like. Right now I have VCO2 tuned to an octave, roughly, almost perfectly an octave beneath VCO1. Beautiful, harmonious. Let's hear what this frequency modulated by VCO2 sounds like. So even though they are harmonious, with the frequency modulation, it brings out that dissonance. And let's see what it's like if we tune them. Pretty close. Bring in the FM. Now let's mess with VCO2. And that's the all setting with a square wave. Let's do a sine wave. Oh, totally different sound characteristic when we change the pitch of VCO2. Now, all you're hearing right now is just this square wave still. Now let's have VCO2 as an LFO range. Okay, and that's just using the frequency modulation knob without changing anything. That's just using VCO2 to modulate. So like what that means is that it's like the pitch out is going into right there. That's basically what this knob is doing right now. But what if we plug it into just a square wave? So we have a square wave, modulate a square wave. So we have our square wave. Let's have the square wave modulate the frequency of the square wave. Pretty cool, right? Now let's have the square wave modulate the frequency of the triangle. No, let's instead have a triangle modulate the frequency of a square. Totally changes the timbre of the sound, totally changes the characteristics of it. Modulated by a triangle. Modulated by noise. Modulated by the volume of the synth. Very cool. Linear FM works similarly, but in a slightly different way. So let's try it with just modulating with VCO2. Let's give linear FM an attenuator. So now we have an FM knob and a linear FM knob. Very cool, and that's still going off VCO2. And again, all you're really hearing there is a square wave. Oh, because the amp is on, haha. Square wave. Lots of fun stuff you can do with the FM and linear FM. Very cool. What else is dope? I showed the amp into the cutoff, didn't I? Pretty sure I did. Let's plug that back in anyhow, because I like that one. Oh, I need a attenuator to run for that. Yeah. And then let's do... Actually, at this point, what else is cool? You can do goofy things with a bunch of these patches. You can do goofy things with a bunch of these patches. Those are the ones I really wanted to highlight, but now I really want to get into using outside noise gear to modify the synth. Let's get back here so I have a use for my attenuator knob. We're going to use that as the amp feedback knob. So that's the amp feedback and cutoff knob. But now we're going to do some fun stuff with noise synth. So this is Mahalat, which is a... it's not a shaker. It sounds like one, but it's not. It is a noise synth that outputs a whole bunch of like very loud, very harsh clicks and stuff. We're going to listen to it. Let's plug it in through the external input. Now I have this going through a splitter just because I'm going to do lots of goofy stuff with it. But let's first just have it going through so you can hear what it sounds like. That's what this synth sounds like. It's just running through the master right now, so nothing is affecting it. That's just what it sounds like. And I can grab the chains and touch it to make it make different noises. Cool, right? Okay. Here's it through the external, because it has an external in. Now it's being affected by the filter and the resonance, and is now being affected by the actual synth. Yeah, pretty cool. You can even give it like a filter. Yeah, so we can take an outside source and run it in through our external and then blend it just like any of the other sounds. So think of it like an alternate noise source. Haha, right? No, wrong. We're going to do goofy stuff with this. In fact, we're not going to run it in through an audio input. We are going to use the noise synth as a CV source. We're going to use it to trigger other things. So let's try it on the pitch. Let's try it on FM. Try it on linear FM. You can even do like things to the pulse width, I guess. Yeah. But really, you can also do it through the cutoff. The amp. Amp modulation, which doesn't work, but you can also run it through, not that, frequency modulation. Let's do the pitch at the same time. And that is just frequency modulation and pitch modulation with the Mahalat. run it into oscillator 2 as well. Let's try it with the sequencer. Yeah, let's record a sequence real quick. Oh, let's just do an arpeggiator. There we go. And let's do the pitch. Some brute factor. Some amp feedback. And some FM. But that is not all, folks. Now we are going to try something else with inputs. We are going to plug our splitter into our death metal and our shaker box. So now our death metal and our shaker box are controlling the pitch. It's not as dramatic as the other synth when it was like warbling all crazy, but check it out. I'm gonna do vocals on this. Well, let's try frequency modulation. Really cool. What else can we plug this into? Let's trigger the envelope. Look, you can see it right there. There we go. Let's have it modify the pitch again. Nah, cut off. So yeah, I think that almost covers what I wanted to talk about, but I did want to plug this mic in, and I think that'll be the last thing I do, is going to be plug the mic I'm using into the death metal, and then use my voice to trigger a whole bunch of different stuff. But once I close out with that, I am going to, that'll be the end of the video. And I'll have to get it in now. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Now you can hear it in the middle of the video instead of the end of the video. But yeah, this is a great synth. I really like the nonsense that I can do with it. I really like being able to plug it in wrong and have good results. I also really like the fluidity of it. It's very fluid, very easy for me to go from something musical to something nasty. Really quick. It's a lot of fun. Yeah. Okay, so now I am going to do a vocal performance with this mic and this synth. So I'm going to unplug. Testing. Can you hear me? Okay. All right, baby. Let's run it in here. Run it through the filter, run my voice through the filter. There we go. Hell yeah. Okay, now let's turn on some files. Okay. Testing 1, 2. Let's get some feedback.
Okay, let's try something else. Let's try cut. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1. Testing 1. That's all, everyone. Don't forget to like and also subscribe. Yeehaw.